So I have the pleasure of being with Michael today, Michael Brown, who many of you might know from some of the forums. He's pretty regular on the forums, and he's kindly standing in front of his new Garagematic sign. Welcome. Thanks for letting me interview you today.
Hey, Annika. I haven't seen you in quite some time. I've got to get an Annika fix here pretty soon, you know?
Yeah, can we zoom in on you a bit? I can barely see you. Yeah, there we go. There's that face.
Yeah.
Haven't aged a day since I last saw you. So Michael, you have become quite a prolific collector. When did it start for you, and which cars are we going to see today?
Well, I started collecting when I was 16. The whole Rolls-Royce thing started not quite 3 years ago. I'm a filmmaker in addition to my day job as being a software engineer and entrepreneur. So I've done a lot of films and shot a lot of music videos, a lot of TV commercials, things of that nature. And I was hired to shoot a fairly decent budget music video. And the artist requested a classic Rolls-Royce. And my original thought was just, to rent one for the shoot. So I started looking into that, and I was like, wow, these are kind of neat. Maybe I ought to just see about buying one instead of renting it. And that is actually what I did. So instead of renting the classic Rolls for this music video, I just bought it. And I just kind of fell in love with the cars and the brand at that point. And so I feel kind of bad because I have other cars in my collection. I wouldn't say I neglect them, but I definitely don't put the kind of time in them that I've been putting into these Rolls Royces. So.
And do you still have that same car?
So this car, this is a 1977 Silver Shadow 2, and this was the car that I bought for the music video. I've done a huge amount of work to this car since I bought it. It was a barn find. It had literally sat in a barn for a decade, and at least it was out of the elements, which is good. And I have to tell you that I knew nothing about Rolls-Royce when I bought this car 3 years ago. And it actually started up, and it did drive. The first time I ever saw it, the lady started it up, and every single warning light on the dash was lit up. I'm not kidding you. It was bad, but knowing now what I know about the brakes on this car, I would have never taken it down the road like I did that very first day either. It was a really dangerous and stupid thing for me to do. But anyway, I bought this car. I trailered it home. I bought it a week before the music video shoot. And I thought I was just going to be able to whip this thing into good enough shape to use in this music video, right? And so it had no brake fluid at all. So I did some research and figured out what kind of brake fluid I needed to put in. I ordered it, had it expressed, put it in the car, and it promptly ended up on my garage floor. Every last drop of it.
I love that you thought that was all you were going to need to do.
Yeah. And I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, I've got to have this car ready for this music video shoot in a week. And so that began my foray into the Rolls-Royce forums. And somehow, by the grace of God and with the help of I don't know how many people, this car made it all the way to Dallas, made it to the shoot. But the funny thing is I filled up the brake reservoirs with brake fluid, and I thought I fixed the brake leak, right? That turned out to be someone had replaced the seals in the brake pumps, but they put the wrong seals in. So the fluid was just leaking out from around the seals. So that was before I knew that you had to have a special tool to take those pumps off. I mean, I'm telling you, Annika, it was a mess. But anyway, I replaced those seals, put it all back together. But by the time I got to the music video shoot, all of the brake fluid had drained out of the car again.
But you were still in love with the car, right?
Yeah. And so then we did the shoot, and it was, I think we started at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. I didn't leave the set until 4 a.m. Filled it up with brake fluid so I could make it home. And about halfway home, the coolant light came on. And so now I'm trying to find a gas station where I can like put some water in this thing. Well, it turns out the coolant wasn't actually low at all. It was just, you know, the sensors, the coolant sensor in these cars is very prone to braking and giving false readings. So anyway, that was kind of my first week of ownership of this car.
And how, to what extent do you feel that she's now in perfect shape? Is she kind of 90%, 100%? Where is she, and how much more are you going to do on her?
So I would say, well, I'm a perfectionist, so I would say this car is at about 35% of where I want it to be.
Would you, how free and easy are you with the keys to that car? Would you let me drive it?
Yeah, I would let you drive it.
Would you?
I trust you because you grew up with these. You know their little quirks and.
So what is the benchmark for being allowed to drive her?
So from my point of view, driving a classic car is not like driving a modern car. You can't whip this thing around. You can't mistreat it. You have to treat her like a lady that she is, basically.
Well, I'm extremely honored that I would be allowed to take the keys. And do you have a name for her?
Yes, Beatrice. I named her after my grandmother. And so that's kind of how I came up with the name for it.
Oh, that's lovely. Okay, are you going to show us any of the others? What was the next purchase after Beatrice?
So I'm in love with this car. This is a 74 Shadow long wheelbase. I have done nothing to this car cosmetically. This was another barn find. This sat in a barn for, we don't really know. We know at least a decade, but we probably think more like 20 years. When I bought it, the engine did turn over. It had absolutely no brakes at all. Brakes were completely dead, no power steering, just a whole host of issues that you would probably find on a car that's been sitting for 20 years in a barn, no less. So the reason why I bought this car is I'm working on this Garagematic, which is a platform dedicated to the classic car enthusiasts and helping them with the resources and how-to videos and documentation that they need to, complete work on their own without necessarily having to go to the forums or without having to do a whole bunch of research, because kind of was born out of my frustration with dealing with these cars. And so this car was purchased as kind of a test bed for us to develop all of the projects that were required to get this thing back up and running. So it runs perfectly now. It starts right up. And if you look inside, the interior has been redone. Just wrapping up all of the wood, putting the dash and the top roll back on this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
You see how the door caps are absolutely beautiful.
You did all those that wood restoration yourself, didn't you?
I spent weeks practicing before I ever touched the wood in this car, because I feel that if you're a hardcore enthusiast like I am, you want to do as much of the work as you can. And in my case, it's not because I can't afford to have someone work on the cars or whatever. I truly enjoy doing the work. I think it's incredible to take something that's, beat down and most people would just leave for dead, and bringing it back. In a lot of cases with these Rolls Royces, bringing it back to a state where it was actually better than it was when it came from the factory, because we have, we have better coatings now, for example, better technology, better quality control, parts manufacturing, that
Better
kind of thing.
materials. Yeah. Um,
Right.
so Michael, what makes you decide, obviously, oh, what's the name of this car, by the way?
I have not named this car yet. I just, the interesting thing is this car just had its first road test last week. So probably the first time in 20 years it's been on the road. And that was really neat to be able to take it. I just took it around the block. I didn't take it far. Um,
When you decide on a car, I realize you bought this one mainly for working on for part of the Garagematic project, but normally, how do you decide whether you're or not you're going to buy a car?
Basically, I would say that, I'm constantly looking for cars, the typical places that most people find cars. And I'm looking sometimes for, it just has to speak to me. I'm big on color. Like I love this particular color combination. This Spirit right here, I absolutely love the color. But the funny thing about this car is uh, when I saw this car, I saw this car on Facebook,
Uh-huh.
and they wanted like 20,000, well, over $20,000 for it, and I thought that was pretty steep, but it looked okay in the pictures. And I drove over to the place, and I'm like, no, I'm not buying this car. There's no way. It was filthy. The passenger front door and the passenger rear door the passenger door was like a half inch out. So my initial thought was that the car had been, in an accident.
Yeah.
Um, but I did a cursory kind of, tapping around, trying to find evidence of Bondo, and I just couldn't find it. But I thanked the people, and but I passed on this car. And on the way home, I got a call from, I guess, the owner of the dealership that had the car. And he was like, well, how do you like the car? And I said, well, I'm going to pass on it. I just felt like it was just too rough. Well, he was like, well, I really need to get rid of it. It's been on my lot for 6 months. And I just made him a ridiculous offer. I was almost embarrassed to make, but anyway, he accepted it. So I bought it. So this is kind of a different way to get a car.
A done deal. You couldn't say no then.
That's right. And now that I've done a huge amount of work to this car. If you look at the front, again, thanks to Prestige Cards, I keep plugging you guys, but
No, you don't have to. I promise. I still want to talk to you.
I want to, because if it wasn't for you guys, I mean, I don't know how much of this I could have done, because I'm sure you can see, I totally redid all of this, all of the, the seals, and just all of it came from you guys.
Well, I must say it is really clear to see the pride you have when you do your work. It's very evident on the forums. And I remember the time that you almost cried at our dinner because you realized we sent you the wrong part.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was the high pressure return.
Yeah, and you had the wrong one winging its way over to you.
I still have that, by the way. It's in a closet somewhere, so when you guys want it back.
Okay, so one more question then. What is your favorite car and why?
Right now, the 74 is my favorite. and it's going to really be my favorite once I get the cosmetics cleaned up or whatever. I think this car is very elegant. You know, when I think of Rolls-Royce, this is what I think of. I love the opera window in the back. Um, I think that the interior of this car with the slope center console is absolutely gorgeous. I don't know why they changed it on the Silver Shadow 2. I think it was a mistake to change it. I think this car is a lot easier to work on than the 77. You know, even little things like the boot seal on this car is just, you know, it's a much more typical boot seal. You know, it's just everything about this car is better, in my opinion, than the Silver Shadow 2. I am working on a 71 Corniche, the fixed head coupe with the factory sunroof, Molnar Park Ward. So I think just hopefully we'll close the deal on that tomorrow. So I have a feeling that that will be my new favorite car.
Okay. And will you
But
let
we'll
us
see.
know what you end up naming her?
Yes, I will.
Okay, good. Okay, and so when are you going to be ready with Garagematic?
Okay, so Garagematic is it. So first of all, it's pretty amazing. I mean, I know I developed it or whatnot, but
I know I can
if you could
concur.
just,
I can concur.
yes, and you know, it's taken me 3 years to do it. Primarily because it's a whole platform. It's not just a website. You know, it's not just an app or anything like that. I mean, there's a lot to Garagematic, and so you know, it took a long time to develop the software, and then concurrently shooting all of the projects. Right. So right now we're going to launch with just under 100 different projects. We're starting with Rolls-Royce and Bentley, and they're all fairly, you know, common projects that most people would want to do. We didn't get too technical, but we're going to, right? So I've been working with several really great mechanics, one of which is Ronnie Shaver, Ronnie's Garage in Southern California. So over the last year, and I'm telling you, an entire year, Ronnie has been flying here to my shop, and I've been flying to Southern California. And typically, we'll shoot for 3 to 4 days solid. And we'll shoot as many projects on as many cars as we can, you know, in a 3 to 4 day span. And then, you know, I come back and I edit all these things. So we're doing these incredible how-to videos, and then we partnered with part suppliers like Prestige Parts, Intro Car, for example. So as we produce the how-to videos, we package that up with all of the parts and all of the tools. And so you can order the whole thing with the touch of a button and have the how-to videos, written instructions, and then the parts show up at your front door. And you know it's right. You know that you don't have to do the research. You're getting to listen to someone that's been doing this for 40 years, that knows pretty much everything there is to know about these cars. So, you know, if he shows you how to do it, you can pretty much take it to the bank that you're going to have a successful outcome as long as you follow the instructions.
So I may actually find that I can start working on these cars after a long history in this industry and never doing a single thing. I might actually learn something for a change.
Yes, yes, I think you probably will. And then one of the other things, it does much more than just how-to videos. You can manage your own car, or if you got a fleet of cars, you can create your own projects so that you can track what you've done on the car. And then when you go to sell it, you know, you have that history. And it does a huge amount of things, you know, that you'll just have to see. But we're wrapping it up now, finally, after 3 years.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and then we are taking requests, and it's free. It's free to sign up. so you can have a Garagematic account for free.
Well, thank you, Michael. Thanks for sharing with us. I'm glad I finally got to see inside your workshop.
So I'm literally out on 5 acres. Uh, believe it or not, only about 20 minutes from downtown Dallas. So, but yeah.
Well, one day we might all be able to travel again, and I look forward to coming to visit you when we can.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much,
Thank
and
you,
have
Anne.
a lovely evening.
You too. Bye.
Bye.